For example 2, it's asking us to draw a curve with the equation y equals x squared. And the thing you have to do every time, if you're not given this in the test, and most of the time you are, you have to draw a little grid with your x and y values. And it doesn't actually tell you which x values to choose. So we're going to choose some typical ones, which go from -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. They're the typical ones to choose. Now to work out the y values, I recommend, rather than doing this one first, we actually work backwards. So we do the 3 first, and then we may see a pattern. The reason for that is because sometimes the negative numbers get a bit messed up if you put them in badly into this. So this value here is going to be when x is 3. So the y value would be 3 squared, which is 9. In this case, the y value is 2 squared, which is 4. In this case, the value is 1 squared, which is 1. In this case, the value is 0 squared, which is 0. Now here, you've got to be very, very careful because you're squaring a negative number. And that means when you put it into a calculator, you don't write -1 squared because that would be the wrong answer. What your calculator would do now is do the 1 squared and then put a negative in front. But what this actually means is the value of -1 is squared. So you have to really be careful to remember to write brackets here, because this actually gives you the value of 1. If we didn't write the value, if we didn't write the brackets, we would get the value of -1, and that would be wrong. So this value is 1. And now we may see a symmetry here, where this value would be 4 and this value would be 9. So be very careful with that. And if we were to draw that onto a grid, we would see that it looks a bit like this. So remember to label your axes, x and y. The reason being that if you forget to do this, the graph doesn't actually make any sense. So you have to remember to do that. And the coordinates were generated from our table. So this coordinate here, for example, 0, 0. When x is 0, we know y is 0, and that is shown here. Another thing is when you're plotting your coordinates, do them with crosses, not with blobs. If you did it like that, then you're not really exactly sure which part of the blob to go through. Instead, if you did it with a cross, you know it's right in the middle of that. So always do your coordinates with crosses rather than blobs. Another coordinate would be 1, 1, and that is shown by going 1 on the x and then 1 on the y, which is this coordinate here. The coordinate 2, 4 is going to be 2 in the x direction and then 4 in the y direction, which is here. And then by doing this for all of the coordinates that we've generated, we get these. And because it's got a squared in it, that our graph has got an x squared in it, we know that it's not just a series of straight lines. So when you're connecting these, don't connect it with a straight line, because then you get this V shape at the bottom, and it's definitely not that shape here, you can see. So when you're connecting your coordinates, do it with a curved line. And the curve sometimes is a bit difficult to get right, so do it in pencil, not in pen. Do it in pencil to connect the dots. Okay. In the third example, we've been asked to draw the curve with the equation y equals x squared plus 2. And in the same way that we did before, we're going to draw a small grid and write the values again, minus 3 to 3. And the value of y, again, we're going to work this way. So this was going to be 3 squared, which is 9, and then you add the 2 afterwards, 11. 2 squared is 4, plus 2 is 6. This would be 3, that would be 2. Now, this is, again, it's a mirror image. This is going to be the 3, the 6, and the 11. Remember to put any negative values in brackets when you do it in the calculator. And it's asked us to draw it, so we should remember first of all to label our axes, x and y, plonk the coordinates on here, and then connect them with smooth curves. And the computer-generated version of that looks like this. And do you see that it's exactly the same as our previous example? It's exactly the same shape, which is here. But do you spot anything that's different between them? This point here is called the vertex. The vertex is the minimum point or the maximum point. And in the one that we've drawn down here, spot the vertex is in the same x coordinate, but the y coordinate is 2 higher. And in fact, all of the coordinates are 2 higher, which kind of makes sense because we've added 2 to all of the y values, which means that the whole graph is just shifted up by 2. And it says here in part B, describe how the curve is related to the curve with the equation of this. We would say for part B, it has translated by, and then we would show in our column vector, it's gone 0 in the side to side, but it's gone up by 2. So it's translated by the vector 0, 2. Okay, have a go at the exercises.